Thank you, everyone. We're going to get started. My name is Anna Morrow, and I'll be your facilitator for this session. Let's go over the agenda first. Some housekeeping. We will be recording this session and we will post it on our website and on YouTube. We won't be sending the deck or taking questions. We have so much to get through today, so we're trying to be as efficient as possible with your time. So thank you for your understanding. We will have my email available at the end if you have any questions that we have not been able to answer or capture. We're happy to follow up with you and answer whatever we can for you, just so that you see how we've organized this time, again, to take advantage of your time most effectively. We'll do a brief overview and then we'll hop into the general and platform areas, so HCM, financials, and technical, and we'll finish with extend around 3 o'clock for those on Eastern time zone, so top of the hour, and then student for the last half hour. So those of you who are not involved with higher ed or student, we didn't want you to feel like you were missing out on something, and we may have some folks join us at the top of the hour. For our marketing folks, I do see that someone has an echo. So if there's anyone on our panelist area that is not muted, if you could mute to make sure we have that issue taken care of, and we will keep moving. So today we are excited to have several of our specialists with us to talk to you about their functional area. We will not have time for them to introduce themselves, but I know that their passion and expertise will come through in their chat. And we really ask them to review their areas for the Workday release related to what you must make sure that you look at for the release, what might be nice to know, and what might look like you would just skip by it, but things that they think you're going to want to pay attention to. So we'll go to the next page, make sure you see all of our panelists. Again, we will start student at the top of the hour, so we may have folks coming and going, but we will continue moving forward. If you're not familiar with Avaap, I just want to give you a little bit of context there, because we do have broad services. In addition to, of course, deploying Workday, we're very proud of our deployment, preparation, and post-production AMS services for Workday, but also our data and analytics and AI practice that works with both combining Workday and other data to centralized sources, and we'd be happy to chat with you. And then our organizational transformation solutions include organization change management, our change academy, maturity and assessments, and all sorts of opportunities to help you with change leadership in your organization. Regardless of if it is a Workday deployment or not, we know that as you make large scale changes, it's important to make sure that folks are informed. So we're happy to assist you. Looking at the industries that we support, higher education and state and local government and transit are the bulk of our clients, but we also work with nonprofits. We are focused regionally based in Columbus, Ohio, but we have clients all over the nation and would be happy to work with any of these. We feel that these industries all align really well together. While there are some things that a private organization may have that a public or federal may not, we find that focusing on these really helps us focus on the things from one industry that we can take to another. There are some logos that we'll share with you. These may be some of your colleague organizations. If you need any assistance with post-production or implementation services, AI, AMS, OCM, wasn't that a lot of alphabet all at once? So change management, post-production, Workday, or AI, we're happy to assist. These are some of the clients that we would be happy for you to reach out to. And we also have additional data partners like Carahsoft and Tableau, Alteryx, MuleSoft, Elation, in addition to our primary and biggest partners of Workday and Snowflake, been in the Snowflake and Workday ecosystem for many, many years. So that is our little overview of Avaap, so that you know where we come from as we talk to you about what you might want to consider as you look at this most recent Workday release. Before we get started on the functional areas, let's talk a little bit about change management. I mentioned our practice. It's a practice of nearly 80 people focused not only on Workday, but change leadership across any kind of organization. But as we look at a Workday release, we wanted to call to mind that this is a great opportunity for you to think of all of these things through that lens of a Workday release and change management, because it certainly is changing how people are doing their jobs, optimizing how they use Workday, and thinking about how the organization works. If you are focused on a targeted communication and helping them understand, then perhaps they're ready for these changes. It avoids disruption and hopefully it increases adoption and usability and happiness with the new release. And then finally, it helps align with your leadership priorities, making sure that the things that you have decided to turn on or wait or organize in a certain way, you've communicated to your user community so that they're using that as effectively as you like and reinforces your governance structure. So we wanted to plant that seed before we moved into any functional discussion so that you can be thinking about what you might need to do to communicate this to your user areas. As we move into the functional areas, just another housekeeping reminder that the deck will not be available. So be sure to take good notes. The recording will be available on our website and on YouTube. All right, Chandra, we are going to jump in with HCM and compensation. Welcome.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. So excited to be covering some of this information with you. So let's start off with restricting job profile visibility. So now on our staffing events, we can restrict by country, company, and or organization, or a combination of the three, and get that set up. Just so you're aware, 26R1 plus, Safe Harbor applies, is that this would also be available in the recruiting job requisition space. So something to look forward to there. Moving on, we have two new reports coming up. This is for our HR and TA leadership so that they can watch and keep an eye and have a better pulse on internal candidates. So, what are the trends? What are the counts? Are they going into transfer or promotions? There's some setup required there, but really excited about these two new reports. Excited to go into the onboarding planning component. Wanted to point out that if you're already in onboarding planning and have some old inactive plans, you're going to be able to inactivate them, get them visually off that table. So that's available. And if you have Manager Insight Hub turned on, there's a new manager task visible for you. So the managers can now see upcoming tasks on their new hires plans and overdue. So they can help with new hire tasks with regards to onboarding. And then onboarding setup, this is actually planned to be integrated into Onboarding Planner 26R2 Safe Harbor. So keep an eye out for that. That's actually going to be really exciting. Next slide, please. For compensation, let's talk about the compensation review. So in that, you're going to be able to do multiple promotion reasons now and calculated award pools. Take a look at those links. I think you're going to be excited about that. Setup required, but that's going to be available. And for US federal customers that are out there, there's now going to be an ability to tie allowance and one-time payment plans to the nature of action codes. Setup required, but do know that's available. Very excited about these new business process improvements. We're going to be able, administrators, I should be clear, administrators are going to be able to manage and restart when a BP goes in error. So I'm sure you've seen your BP goes into a red air and it's all hands on deck to get it together. So now you'll be able to take a look, fix, manage, and restart. I recommend you start in Sandbox, but just know that that's available. We're going to be able to require comments on approval steps, and we're going to be able to put composite reports on business process report steps. All of this is automatically available. You'll have to check some boxes and get your reports ready, but just know that that's available in this release. Change job template, new user experience. This comes up multiple times. on our releases. Workday now is stating that 26R2 is going to be the release safe harbor, that they're going to automatically turn that on. We recommend that you do this before Workday does. And the reason is if you have conditions on fields, if those fields aren't present in those templates, you'll run into errors. So it's better that you take care of those templates, you test those templates so that you're not running into errors at that next release.
A great suggestion. These are exciting. I'm excited about these.
I know.
Let's talk about
Me too.
recruiting.
Now we're getting the area I really like. Okay, Recruiter Hub, everyone. Recruiting space has had the Recruiting Hub for years, way ahead of the other SKUs. What's happening in this release is Workday is getting the Recruiting Hub integrated and moved into the Hub framework. If you already have global navigation, sidebar turned on. It came out a few releases. You have it on. You have your recruiting hub all in there. The only change for you is a name change from recruiting to recruiter. Okay. If you have not yet taken advantage of the global navigation sidebar, might want to look into doing that this release because next release it's required. Safe harbor. Workday is making it mandatory. Global navigation sidebar will be turned on across the ecosystem 26R2. So that's the Recruiter Hub. Moving on, I think there's going to be more in this space in now and upcoming. Customers are finding out that there may or may not be humans applying external career sites. To help support in this arena, Workday is providing single data report fields. These are going to be fields you can use in custom reports that you build to determine the origin and or the nature of where that application is coming from. Okay, so this is coming out this release. And some are important retirements to call out. Job application for hire report field is being replaced with job application for hire singular. That's its name. So it's going from multi-instance to single instance. Just be aware there. And then my application and my applications report is being replaced with my applications report. You've seen this in multiple releases. Many of you have probably already made that transition over. Just know it's coming across the ecosystem automatically. 26R2 Safe Harbor. I wanted to finally call out just one last thing, that candidate skills match configuration. It was set to deprecate in this release, and Workday has pulled that back, pulled back deprecation of that configuration. The date is to be determined. With that, I'm going to hand it over to my colleague and friend, Gina. She's going to go into learning, talents, and benefits. Thank you.
Thank you, Chandra. Welcome, Gina.
Excellent. Thanks, Chandra. I'm going to go ahead and start with learning, talent, and benefits, and we'll look at the mandatory items. I do use a lightweight version of this, but for learning, we do have a modernized user interface. It does require more change management awareness than specific configuration, but you want to make sure you check out your preview tenant to look at the learning path slider update, content visualizations with descriptions, status indicators, and then some of the changes within the channels themselves. So determine how much of a change you see within your tenant and work from there for your planning as far as change management is concerned. There's also optional changes that can be made via the learner experience. So you can try out things like slide configurability and side navigation. Engagement Builder is also here. It's now available to all functional areas for ad hoc communications. So it's not just for learning anymore. It's a great time to start planning your transition for learning from the older campaign into Engagement Builder. Keep in mind that recently we did add in the custom reports that was associated with engagements as well. And there's also been some updates to prompting and support within 26R1 for data source filters. We also have a media delivery update. So if you use strict outbound firewall rules, proxy filters, or DNS allow lists, make sure that you review and update your configuration as needed and also test connectivity there. Moving on to some of our could change items, we do also have our observational checklists. These are checklists that were set up in 25R2 originally, with the user consumption part being in 26R1. These features are accessible through the training activity lesson types, and they're both available on desktop and mobile. If you want to learn more about that, look for the March 12th webinar related to that on community. We also have expressed interest for my team. This increases the manager capabilities so they can express interest on course offerings for their direct reports directly. And if any of you recall discussions back in October about changing up manager enrollments and functional enrollments, along with a new business process for assignments, all that configuration development was moved to 26R2, so keep an eye out for that at that time. If you're using talents feedback and you're using anonymous features, you can actually go through and also set anonymous by default, you'll actually reduce some of the clicks for the end user and also encourage some participation there as well. So we'll go ahead and jump to some of the other don't miss items. Excellent. So you might recall warnings of retired dashboards from prior releases. Several talent and management dashboards are no longer retiring. They're no longer on that retirement list. But you still want to migrate towards using the Manager's Insights Hub, and you'll want to look at configurable cards within this release to see how that might be able to help you. If any of you have Talent Marketplace and Career Hub updates, there are updates there. So be sure to go back and look at the delivered versions that will be replaced with configurable items there for availabilities. On our Career Hub, you also have the ability to change job title and use job title instead of job profile. And there's also AI that you can use to generate flex team descriptions there. There are also API updates across Workday into Extend and other third-party systems. Some of the nice updates related to learning are the re-enrollment for Cloud Connect and also a configurable way to prevent auto-completion on those external content lessons when engaging with the REST API. And we'll go ahead and move to benefits now.
And if you can get just a little bit closer to your microphone, I know that some people have been having a little trouble hearing you. Some people may have an echo. We're working on that. We may not be on our side, but we want to make sure you're as close as possible to the microphone.
Okay, yes. So within benefits, we have the dependent effective dating. These are items that were updated over several releases. That is automatically available, but you can see how to integrate that within your processes. There's also the ability to set up the marital status change during enrollment. The coverage waive date for enrollment event rules that you can separate the track waive versus the enrollment. There's also benefit credits towards retirement savings. Also, you have purging dependent data. So you can have purge data related to dependents and beneficiaries. And then there are also purge validations that are applicable to all of HCM that are delivered. For our Workday SKU help people, we do have AI draft articles where those can be generated based on any benefit plan, whereas last release, it was just based on your health release items. And we'll go ahead and move into people experience. With people experience, we do have some mandatory actions. Chandra already mentioned the global navigation sidebar. We also have the new Workday experience that's automatically defaulted. You do have an opt-out for this release, but keep in mind that it will be required soon. If you haven't updated to the profile lift yet, that also defaulted. As of February 24th, there has been a new opt-out that's been added for that if you need to opt out for this period, but make sure you recognize that it will be required in future releases. So plan accordingly for that. Some more testing items on the next screen. We will go into journeys. We have journeys that are available on mobile where you want to make sure that you test those out. And also on our next slide, we also have if you include learning items within your journey steps, now you have the ability to automatically complete the learning once the learner completes the content. This is applicable to journeys that are distributed after 26R1. If you have any prior distributions, you would have to go back and redistribute those to have that updated there.
I think we may have missed, I just want to go back one, if we could just make sure that for journeys, the automated learning step and the dynamic language, wanted to call that out because I think we transitioned past it as you were talking about the next exciting items.
Sorry, it must be just a timing thing. Yes, for the dynamic learning language support, it's just users when they change their preferences, the distributed journey will update automatically if translations exist there. Excellent. Then we can go to some of the optional items within the hubs, which is back one more. Yes, exactly. Thank you. Within the hubs, we do have the configurable cards that you can add to Managers, Insights Hub, the HR Hub, or even any hub such as Finance or Student. These give you the ability to add images, tasks, or data visualization linkages. There is a 100 count limit per tenant and also a 10 count limit per overview page. For journeys within 25R2, they did add the self-service journeys. Now users can actually search for those self-service journeys, and also they can find their distributed journeys via the global search. For our Help SKU subscribers, we also have article lifecycle improvements. This gives you the ability to add workflow approvals and expiration dates. There's also where you can add customizable case list features, and you can reorder columns and also personalize for the case solver as well. And then we'll go to the next slide where we actually have some don't miss items related to journeys. And within journeys, there's actually been a lot of updates. One of the big updates was made back in October, where you actually can have journeys distributions to any business processes. So it's no longer limited to hire, termination, change job, or add additional job. You can now add this service step to any business process, any HCM, any finance, any student business process. So that means if you're doing an open enrollment, you can actually go out and add and push out journeys related to the vendor benefits. After the point of completion, you can actually remind workers about some of the features that are available. If you have leave of absence or expense items, you can actually go out there and push a journey citing policies, videos, steps outside of Workday. You have unions, you can actually send out a union event for a journey so that union members will be aware of some of those pieces. You have a one-time payment, maybe you can push out a journey where you're sending information out to the managers as well. Just things from that nature. Think about those. For Journeys cards, those are now being retired and being replaced by the Extend SKU card. You also have the ability now to set up reports within the journey as a step directly instead of having to create links. And then there's also the Adoption Planning Hub that replaces the Adoption Planning Dashboard. So be sure to make sure that you check out that. It's very helpful looking to items directly within your tenant. And if we'll go ahead and go to the next slide. When it comes to AI, there are also several features there. If you're on the UMSA agreement, pay close attention to Sana Core. There's also Workday Self-Service Agent and the System of Record Agent. There are some Workday Next Levels and also 26R1 offering webinars that are more in depth on the community that you can check out. If you contract with AMS, check out the Release Solution articles, because we do have links there that also include deeper dive webinars into security and mobile as well. We also have AI suggested translations within journeys and notifications that are also now available. And I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Pat with Patricia Gonzalez so she can share the payroll highlights.
Thank you, Gina and Chandra. If anyone is stepping away because they were HCM focused, we're happy to help you with any questions or any of the items that you want us to help you with as we keep going. All right, so we're going to move to payroll absence and time tracking, starting with Patricia.
Hello, everyone. Okay, so for payroll, some of the mandatory items that we have, first of all, we have the disabled per pay workload on mobile. This one has been coming on past releases, but we strongly recommend that with the retirement to determine if mobile pay workload ability for your organization. If you don't configure the edit tenant setup payroll task, workers can view the pay workload on the mobile devices. So we highly recommend checking edit tenant setup payroll task and validating what setup you have in there. For payroll secret references, calculation warning, now you will gonna receive a warning message when you run your payroll calculations, and there is a circular reference calculations. These ones are also referred as stack errors for any of your pay components. Typically, we see this on deductions. So it is important to fix these errors before proceeding further so that you can prevent negative impacts. These errors can also result in hard stop errors, so we recommend paying attention. The nice thing of this one is that now Workday provides more information. Before, stack errors were very general, so this one is a good one to have. The next one is the state level exception for local resident taxes. Workday now recognizes a single state level exception and automatically applies it to all the local resident taxes. This one I will recommend for those states that have a lot of local tax authorities, for example, Ohio and Pennsylvania, because this state tax level will apply to all your localities. So we definitely recommend testing this one because you will see minor changes in some of your calculations if you have some of those local taxes. Thank you. Some of the non-missed items, this one is exciting. Now your workers will have access to the withholding orders for the employee self-service. This one you have to enable it, but they will be able to look at their active and historical withholding, which is a really nice to have. Another one that I am very excited about is the pay accounting reallocation. So for those of you that have costing allocations at the worker level or the position level, now Workday allows you to do retroactive costing allocations, and that will update your accounting when reprocessed. So that way you will have to move away from payroll adjustments. And so this one, I will say it's a really nice one to have for those of you that use costing allocation. Thank you.
Your passion and excitement comes through, Patricia.
Thank you.
Anil, let's talk about absence time tracking and scheduling.
Thank you. Continuing the PAT route, time tracking, absence, and scheduling. So in these areas, you may have two types of changes. One is more usability changes on the screens. Some are functional changes. Why it is important in these are your time tracking, absence, and scheduling are very employee facing functions, right? Almost every employee uses timesheets. You're looking at their schedule. So, or also looking, submitting vacation, sick, and all those time offs. Now, why it is important, the usability items are very important here because you may have your training manuals, your instructions, your training videos all built in with older screen. So you may want to make sure that if any of these functions are in your material, you may want to go back and update it. That's pretty critical so that the employees don't get confused with that. Starting with the first one, the retirement, there's a weekly grid for enter time when in a timesheet has you may know there are 4 to 5 options. One of the old options was enter time in weekly grid. That is retiring, but these functions are covered into better screens like enter time by week. Those are covered. So if you happen to use this particular option, you may want to go back and use the one of these, whichever is appropriate for you. Then the second one is in the mobile version of time off, there are some new functions added. Like for example, if you have a time off request in the past, you couldn't go back and add more days and other requests into days into the same request. For example, you have a vacation on the first day, you couldn't add another day into the same request in the past. You could do this in desktop earlier, but not in mobile. Now you have that function. So if you are using that in your organization, definitely make sure that you update and send communication to the employees, and also make sure that if there are questions around that, your support team is equipped to or educated to answer that. There are a few changes on the names, especially on the work schedule changes tasks. So there are a few changes there. They removed all the start from words. Instead of that, it will say change a work schedule. So again, same thing. If people are searching for this word, it may not come up. So you may want to go back and look at the screens and make sure that your team is aware of it and it's communicated to the actual users. Next screen. The previous ones are mostly like a must change. There is something that will have an impact based on your functions you're using. These are important ones. However, this is based on if you are using it or not. Segmented security for time entry code. This is a big one functionally. We are very excited to have this. In the past, if you have some time codes, like for example, your work codes, your working time, then you have a specific codes like overtime or something like your working out of class, those kind of things. If you wanted to control those time codes only for managers, you couldn't do that. You can have all the codes in there. If the code is eligible for the employee, everybody will see it. In the time off, it was possible. In time entry, it was not possible. Now, Workday has an ability for that. You can control what codes manager will see, what codes an employee would see, what codes will a timekeeper see. All these are possible. through in native settings. For our customers, we have built custom solutions sometimes. So if you did that in the past, uh, this nothing happens if you don't do anything, but you can leverage this if you want to use those functions. Another big one is the calculation multiple positions. This is a big one too. Functionally, we couldn't do time calculations based on positions. So there were a lot of requests from the customers where for different positions, we want different calculations. For example, if one position need a shift differential, but the other position doesn't need differential, those kind of things. So now we are able to do that. This is a big one if you have multiple position time tracking. Connected work tags is also a good improvement between if you use Workday scheduling and time tracking together. In the past, we couldn't have the scheduling information. If you have work tags in the scheduling side, it couldn't map between the timesheet. For example, if you have a cost center override, if you wanted to do and map it for a specific shift, you couldn't do that. Now, if you set up correctly, you can have when there's a shift, when you copy the shift to the timesheet, and if you generate time blocks in the timesheet based on a shift, that cost center could be defaulted in the timesheet without entry. In the past, the manager has to go back and do these changes, or the timekeeper had to make those changes in the past. This is a big one if you use that. Next one. Next slide. Okay. Yes, this one. These are very interesting, and again, this are more. It all depends on if you are using these particular functions. In the calendar display, there are few changes. Actually, there is a revise, edit, editing existing events. There are many new functions in there. These are all configurable optional fields. You are able to go that. It's quite a bit to talk about that, but the absence calendar has some improved usability options. Actually, it doesn't break anything. If you don't do anything, nothing happens, but it is good to have those. Some of these are highly requested usability changes by the customers. The next one is there's a lot of improvements in the leave side of things, like your FMLA, your PFML, your maternity leave, the long-term leave processing. We had several functionality gaps for calculating unpaid leaves, paid leaves, your year-end balances, those kind of things. We always found workarounds to make it work. There's a lot of improvement in there. There are a lot of fields and a lot of calculations came in the leave processing. It makes very easy to build certain reports and also build some validations based on year-end balances. So there's a lot of improvements, which is completely worth exploring. The last one is also a big one. I personally was very excited about this. If you use geofences for mobile devices, right? In earlier, you could if you have a mobile phone, geofences is where you have a latitude and longitude coordinates in there. When your employee uses a mobile phone to do a check-in, check-out, when they move into the geofence, it will enable and then you disable when you move out of that. So that basically replaces your third-party clocks. Geofences was always there, but what was not there, the geofence did not work if the employee could trick the system to go to a mobile phone and go to a browser within the mobile phone and then check in, even if they are outside of the geofences. So at that point, we had workarounds to have complicated authentication policies based on IP whitelisting and everything to get around that, meaning making sure that the employees do not do that. Now, this one setting is completely going to help that. So now, if you have geofencing active, this setting will protect them not to from going to their browser and tricking the system. So that is a big win for us. So that ends. I'll give my mic to the finance team.
Thank you, Anil. You boiled so much great data down into a
Thank you.
few pieces for us. I really appreciate you. So we're going to transition to financials, and we have that in two pieces. So Matt, we're going to start with you for your part of financials.
Awesome. Hey everyone, super nice to meet all of you. Super excited to walk you through all the new finance updates. So starting off with the must change items, just to call out, there is no feature retirements. The must change items are things that will improve your processes and the usability. This would be for all the financial management. Business views applies across all fins and spends management, but there are new data sources that aggregate existing Workday data sources, and they allow for better reporting and standardization. The best use case of this is if you're creating calc fields and then you run into an issue where a report field doesn't exist on the data source. And so that's what the business views is designed to help, is to bridge those gap when you're trying to create those fields. The next item that's super important would be the object transporter. Across the fins and spin space have new objects that you can use through the aux or object transporter from preview to import tenants. The nice thing about this feature is if if you're doing project work in a non-production environment, you can, instead of having to set that up in two tenants now, you can migrate. So, say if you're doing a big data cleanup project, you can make all those updates and use the customer central and the object transport instead of having to set that up in new tenants. And these are both automatically available with no setup required. The next slide. All right, so here are some could change items for accounting and assets. Starting first, there's with fiscal years, there's a new web service in EIB for loading fiscal years. Sometimes you'll notice like you'll run into system errors specifically in assets if you don't have fiscal years created through, say, if you have a 50-year life asset, you have to have like those fiscal years created to, see that depreciation schedule. So with this new update, you can load fiscal years. I believe the limit is 100 all the way out. And there is an existing validation so that if there is the fiscal year set up don't align with monthly dates, it'll cause an error to happen. Next, there's a new transaction tax process in Workday, a new reconciliation. So previously, if you were using transaction tax in tax declarations, you would have had to most likely and had ledger accounts set up for transaction tax. You would have most likely been doing that outside the system. So now you have the ability to run a process in Workday, run a task that will do that reconciliation and give you a report of those where those variances are. Both fiscal years and transaction tasks would require setup. And now finally with the custom depreciation conventions with assets, there is a new task where you can define custom depreciation conventions. So you can specify a depreciation start date and then a depreciation end date, as well as an in-service start date. So previously you would have had to if you brought an asset, you would use a depreciation profile with anywhere 1 to 10 years, even 50 years. And you would have to go, and if you had a change in convention, you would have to go and perform asset lifecycle events to get that where you would want it. So now you can just define a convention of when you want that depreciation to start and end, which will help meet new regulatory requirements. Next slide, please. This is another could change item. This would be at budgets and grants. I don't want you to confuse this with award budget structures, but this would be if you're budgeting to a grant level. So if you set up a virtual parent-child budget structure, which is common with grants, where you maybe have you have a summary grant, and then you have more detailed budgets. You now have the ability to budget check at the summary level, so that when a user's entering, say, a expense report or a supplier invoice against a grant, you can now see how that budget check is aggregated at a total funding level and not just the individual level, which will help your grant reporting. And next slide, please. All right, so these are just a couple don't miss items. So one, there's a new security domain that's automatically available for the project. And so within the project, there's a lot of confidential information. You can see how profitable a project's doing. You can see how much you can see burdened and cost rates if you're using time entry. And so Workday's released a new domain so that, and there would be setup required to uh, further provide confidentiality to clients that are using projects. And then finally, we have the award event business process cancellation. This is a new action step that can be performed on the award event BP. The setup would be on the policy to enable that. Previously, you wouldn't have been able to cancel the award event, but now if you set that up, you can cancel that instead of having to um, you know, uh, either send it back and fully complete the business process. You can outright cancel it. All right. I'll hand it over to my colleague Brenda. Thank you all.
Thank you, Matt. Welcome, Brenda. Let's finish up financials.
Thank you. I'm going to start with banking and settlements. Just a couple here to note. On the first one is actually on the business process. So it's excluding the latest revisor, where before it only had like excluding initiator and approvers. Now you can actually exclude the latest revisor, which is kind of cool. The next is the copy canceled settlement runs. This one I'm very excited about. Let's say you have a settlement run that you started that has suppliers on it, you have expenses, you have kind of everything across the board, miscellaneous payments, all that kind of stuff, and then you have to cancel it. You can now actually copy that canceled run where before you weren't able to. And if you've got a ton of stuff on there, you'd have to look everything all up over again, which is kind of neat in my opinion. It's the best feature, I think, for banking and settlements. Next slide, please. On expenses, so both of these that I attached are all based around enhanced security and reporting, and most of it is on credit card account files and transactions. So I would look into these. It is automatically enabled. It is enhanced security. See what it's all about. Take a look at them. Next slide, please. Supplier accounts. So they've changed things slightly with OCR. And OCR is where you can download all your invoices and does the machine learning and all that kind of stuff. Setup is required. But now you actually must select a checkbox before, I would say, the R2 to risk disruption in features. So if you currently have OCR, go back in there, take a look at it. Make sure you select that checkbox. Next slide, please. Okay, so procurement, I did put 3 on here. There is an item substitution throughout the change order. Is the first one. So search and select different items during a change order, where before, like if you were to do a change order, you weren't able to actually look up anything and select a different one from what was prior there. You would have to kind of delete that and add a new one. So that's kind of the first one. Supplier attachment categories are the attachments that, let's say you have tax assessments or W-2s, or so you can actually put labels to attachments now where before you weren't able to. Kind of neat if you want everything kind of labeled so that you know exactly what they are for those attachments. And then the last one on procurement is the mapping of supplier punch outs, spend categories to Workday spend categories. This one's actually cool because it's kind of maintaining the cart details task is what you're going to use. You can add a spend category option to the business object prompt. And by doing that, it allows you to link those punch out items to Workday items. So I think that one's important to look into. Next slide, thank you, is inventory. This one is very cool for inventory for people who use them on mobile. Mobile now allows you to create ad hoc document labels and ad hoc location labels where you were not able to before on the mobile. So that's an added benefit of the mobile device. Next slide. Is customer accounts. Auto apply for overpayments. So on this one, using the advanced customer payment application rule allows you to now record customer overpayments. And this one and the next one are kind of tied together. So that one is the on-account document for over-applied customer invoices. This is managing customer payments that exceed the amount due. The prior allows you to record the overpayments. This one goes hand in hand where you can directly apply it against the current invoice. And by doing that, it generates a new on-account document, which is neat. So you can do everything all in one and it keeps everything together. The last one is the customer invoices with multiple due dates. And on this one, you can create payment schedules for invoices by using multiple due dates on a single invoice. So on that single invoice, you can actually put, okay, I've got I have 5 due. You can actually put those 5 due dates all on that one invoice and everything is done all together. And this also applies to the invoice adjustments, which is neat.
That sounds
Next
very
invoice, or next, thank you, is adaptive planning.
Thank you, Brenda. And just for our participants, everyone who's registered will get the video sent to them by email. We will also post it on our YouTube channel and our website, so be looking for that. All right, John, let's transition to adaptive planning.
All right, great. Thanks, everybody. A couple must change on adaptive, just quick heads up. These are all improvements that will automatically happen. None of these could potentially have any downside impact. The Ask Workday agent, quick note about that. It has to be enabled in your permission sets. We recommend you do so. There's no security risk. It's just a much better search tool. And they're making it even better. That's the update now. You can use the @ symbol, so add an account, add a dimension. It'll take you right there. And it now handles typos, other things better. Just generally, the model's better. The predictive forecaster is improved significantly as far as its data limits. Now up to 10 million cells, lever sheets up to 1 million cells. And so they're really making improvements in this area. We don't see a lot of clients use it, but it is a very powerful tool that we think will continue to evolve as Workday uses more AI. And lastly, chart visualizations. There's some new chart options, but what will just happen with you doing nothing is the charts will look a little cleaner, the rounded edges, just presentation-wise, they'll look a little better. We'll look on to could change. This is really our meat and bones of our presentation. So adaptive planning hubs is probably the most kind of important one that we want to note here. This is basically a new feature. You're going to improve your sheets and reports on dashboards. It's to basically put them on a hub. This is going to require setup. It can be custom curated by admins. If you're using Sheets on Dashboards now, this is basically Sheets on Dashboards 2.0. So without getting into too much detail there. Configurable workflows. Most of our clients don't use workflow. And previously, it's had very limited capabilities. It's limited tier level structure. Now, through the process tracker, they're adding a lot of improvements here too. You can customize tasks by scope, who they get to. You can automate processes. And it's going to disable the legacy workflow entirely. So again, this is optional. If you're using a legacy workflow, this is something you're going to want to investigate before you allow that to move forward. And then I believe we'll move on to the don't miss items. So access rules on model sheet columns. So this is an enhancement to access rules. So on an individual column now, we can apply an access rule, which improves security, particularly in workforce planning sheets where there's sensitive data like salary information. Now you could have a set of users who have access to that data, but you hide certain columns with confidential information. So that's a nice new feature. Notifications is being wonderfully improved because I think most of you would agree that very few of you will go into Adaptive and check your notifications. So now if you use notifications in a meaningful ways, those can be integrated with Teams and Slack. Again, this would require configuration, but definitely a useful feature you might want to consider. And lastly, Workday for Google Sheets. So that's a new add-in. It's kind of similar to Office Connect. It is going to require quite a bit of configuration. It is, only a use case if your organization uses Google Sheets. So very limited use case there, but just kind of a cool new feature. So that is an overview of our new adaptive features.
Thank you, John. I appreciate you bringing your expertise to us. Charlie, let's talk technical and extend.
Sounds great. Thanks, Analia. Hi, everyone. Most of the updates that we're going to be running through today that were a part of the 2026 R1 Release Center related to Extend are mostly don't miss items and additional accessibility, specifically through Graph API. So I'm going to run down the list of all the different endpoints that have some new availability to them, starting out with the compensation grade. So additional access to compensation grade and compensation pay range data is now accessible through Graph API. We've got some additional resource provider data for supplier record creation and updates that's now available. And we also have additional worker data available via new staffing fields. So some of those fields have moved to the worker BP object rather than the staffing event business object. And if we want to jump over to the next slide, most of the updates are all related to Graph API, just a heads up. Extend apps can now access manage enrollments data through Graph API. Apps can now access more comprehensive skill data through Graph API, along with skills, cloud skills, descriptions. And along with that, we have read access available for our change job and change org assignments for the worker business process and the correct change job business process that are now available in Graph API. For job architecture and service updates, we can now add some pretty comprehensive job arc data, which supports some automated provisioning. One that is actually not Graph API and is SOAP related, so not necessarily just your extend items, but also integrations, web services. For reported time blocks for workers, we can now mass load time blocks with specific start and end times through SOAP request and also through reported time blocks for workers through Graph API. And last but not least, we've got some time review events. So we've got some more comprehensive time review data that's accessible through Extend for Graph API and some compensation queries, comp data, and comp change requests that are now available through Graph API. And one other item that I have before we jump into the next portion of our updates, while it's not necessarily included in the release center for Extend 2026 R1 release updates specific to Extend, I highly recommend everyone taking a peek through the developer forum. They release monthly updates for Extend specific items in relation to development and access to anything from widgets and other areas. For example, in February alone, there were updates to the file uploader widget. So there's now event change accessibility. So adding or removing files from that widget, you can now process items through an on-change event. Anything like that, there's updates to like rich text widgets, but they're not tied necessarily to a singular release. They're done periodically. We had one on February 20th. We had one on February 6th. So once or multiple times a month, I will drop a link into the chat after this so that everyone has access. But anyone who's got access to the dev site, I believe, should be able to get to it or access to community. But aside from that, the one other item that I wanted to cover was some upcoming Extend applications that Avaap has been working on that are going to be coming through the Workday Marketplace.
Yeah, we've been busy. Happy for you to
Yeah,
work with those.
my favorite stuff to talk about. So First on the docket, we've got our Instructor Assignment Manager, which is already available on the Workday Marketplace. This is assigning instructors to course sections in bulk, allowing instructors to request course sections to be assigned to, and a couple of additional features there. Below that, one of the new applications that we've been working on is our Transcript Manager. So handling the two-column transcript generation process. For anyone who's tried to work with transcripts in BERT before, you know that it's a little bit of a nightmare to try and create vertical newspaper formatted transcripts. So we're building out an application to kind of create more of a centralized hub for handling them in general and also processing with a little bit more of a custom format by handling it externally. So for that one, we've got our prototype completed and we're working on making some adjustments to that right now to get it pushed to the marketplace. Along with that, we are also working on our faculty workload manager. So this is a process for handling instructional and non-instructional activities in Workday for a bit of a more holistic approach to faculty workload. And last but not least, we've got our course section manager. So this is going to be constrained course section update processing, so specific fields, specific access, constrained through academic units, and handling updates that way. Which is currently starting development here this quarter. And we're looking to have all 4 of these pushed to the marketplace, I want to say by the end of Q2, but safe harbor. And I think that is everything I got. Emily, I'll kick it back to you.
Thank you, Charlie. So that concludes the platform and technical portion. For those who are dropping away, just a reminder that we will be emailing the recording to you for those who have registered for the webinar, and it will also be made available on our YouTube channel and our website as quickly as possible. For those who are just joining us, welcome. We're going to be talking about student for the rest of the time together. Thank you. Let's go to Nate. Welcome.
All right. Thank you guys so much. I'm Nate Slayton. I'm here to talk to you about admissions and student core. So I only have one in this, could change because it's a big one. It's the external student site redesign. Currently, it's a feature opt-in. So you can opt into it. Just remember, once you've opted in, you can't opt back out. So definitely do this in a tenant that you don't mind playing around in a little bit. But the external site redesign is a more modern interface. So instead of the old way where you have text in the middle and then things appear on the right, so the external site might have recruiting events, your application, residency, international, and they kind of pop up as you configure more things or as the student submits more things. Now it's moved into more of a tile format. So instead of being a menu on the right-hand side, it's now tiles in the middle of the page. And so the tiles will allow you to expand the text. So they start off fixed so that you can see everything in one glance. And then you can click more and read more information. So very excited about that. There's also some financial aid changes coming that Heather's going to talk to you about in just a moment. But definitely check out the external site redesign opt-in. So then on our next slide, we have 2 other things that are minor but very exciting. The first one, housing security. Housing security in Workday used to be all or nothing. You either gave people permission to see housing or they didn't have permission to see housing. Now you can actually create housing security around different personas of the student. For example, if you want someone only to see athletics, student athletes who have housing, you can configure student housing for that. So you have a lot more security features and a lot more flexibility in housing than you did previously. So very excited about that one. If housing information is something that you like to protect and wanted to have more granular security options for. The other big feature that's coming out is friends and family contact updates. So when a student adds someone to their network of friends and family, they could potentially create a contact that uses an email address, and then another student could create a different contact that uses the same email address. So let's say you had parents who shared an email address. One student listed mom with that email address, one student listed dad. They would get 2 different set of Workday credentials to log in with. So Workday is now preventing that from happening. So once an email address is in use, that email address can only be used once for one person. Now, a student, let's say you had siblings at the institution, could still list the same parent with the email, and they can link the account and all of that like they've always been able to do. But this will prevent different parents and different people with getting multiple Workday login credentials and causing some of that confusion. So we're eliminating that with this new feature release. So definitely check these out. This one is in the don't miss. Be sure that you check this one out. These are both options that are coming out there for you guys. So I'm gonna turn
They
it
don't look
over.
so deceptive, like three little things, but they're huge. Like, oh my gosh, these are wonderful. Thank you.
Yeah, big
Sarah,
things.
why don't we talk about academic foundation and student records?
Yep. Hi, everyone. So lots of exciting updates coming out in the foundation and record space. The first one, security update for academic records. Workday's moving around where certain configuration items are secured. So it's just important to take a look at these and make sure that the appropriate people are maintaining access to see things. Similarly, we have some consistency in the naming of academic standing fields. So they renamed the additional period honors and standing to the calculated additional period and honors standing. And that's just to provide consistency across the different academic standing report fields. And then lastly, a big one, and especially important for institutions who use a different grade display, uh, a different grade publicly displayed than the student grade element. When you go to change a student grade, your student grade element, not the public grade element, is now displayed. So important call out for institutions who maybe use a different grade element. The next one on some could change items, lots of exciting things coming out here. The registration assignment policy is particularly exciting for institutions who are support cross-calendar registration for multi-calendar institutions. So now Workday is enabling you to roll up registrations to an academic period based on the course section start date rather than the standard start date of the academic period of that course section. And so as you go in to test and configure this policy, an important note about this is that you have to configure a policy with an effective date that's after any of your in-progress registrations. So we typically set the policy dates back to 1/1/1900 for implementation purposes. This will have a future effective date, and you have to test it after your in-progress registrations. Another could change item is the override program of study date for a program of study record. Workday released a new BP and supporting configuration to allow institutions to essentially pick a different version of a program of study for a student without impacting their declare date. So the use case for this is perhaps you have a student matriculate into one version of a program of study that has a certain addable stackable configuration, and you want to change them onto a previous version of that program of study with a different addable stackable configuration. That's now supported through this BP and this configuration. And just an important call out for the advising side of the house, it doesn't impact their academic requirements. And then lastly on this slide, the expiration limits for waitlist promotion notifications. Workday now allows you to essentially kick a student off of a waitlist if they have ignored their waitlist acceptance notification a certain amount of times. This is now available it will be available on the waitlist policy. And moving on to some don't miss items, Workday continues to enhance the saved schedule. So there's the saved schedules builder that's coming out with an enhanced UI. And something that I in particular have been looking forward to is two new tasks called create saved schedule and edit saved schedule, which are independent of the academic plan. So you're now able to students are able to create those independently. Still no capabilities administratively for us to create a saved schedule outside of the academic plan, but students get this flexibility, and we're hoping that it will be rolled out administratively in future releases. Another don't miss item, grading updates for internal articulations. So now when you go to change a grade that is associated with an internally articulated registration, you'll get a nice little pop-up that says, hey, you're changing this grade. Be sure to align it with the academic record where this registration was internally articulated. And that's going to help you just ensure that the academic records, the academic statistics on these records remain consistent. And then last little bit, report field updates, lots of fields being deprecated. You'll see the do not use appended to many of them. So just double, triple check your reports and ensure that they're updated. And that is it from me in the foundation and record space.
Perfect. Let's bring in Alejo to talk advising and curriculum. Thank you, Sarah.
All right, thanks, Analia. The first thing, this is really more of a must think about than a must change. But the non-line registrations that can be used in assigning overrides in the academic progress report. The registrations that are repeated that are not considered the registration applying to the GPA and statistics are considered the not live registration. And those can now be used in overrides in the academic progress report. So really, this is a prompt for you all to think about for those users who do have access to do overrides, do we need to do any special routing relative to using the non-live registrations or not? And if you do, then there's some information out on the posts and community relative to calculated fields to help you identify those so that you can route your business processes appropriately for approval should the routing be different in these situations. All right, moving into our could change items. The first one's definitely interesting, something that you all could take advantage of. It taps into the what if academic progress evaluations, allowing for you to connect into like an existing third-party system or potentially build like a custom web app or custom web page to launch the web service and return the results for matriculated students. So this kind of segues or ties into the 25R2 release that was more so geared towards prospective students. And this is geared a lot towards the current student population. So this can tie into some of the things that you might have for compliance relative to your state in terms of being able to do this in a third party type of situation. Workday does recommend having SSO access set up if you're making this available to students, so that if they're accessing it on a third party or a custom web app, they are authenticating through SSO appropriately. The next one is, I feel like people are probably cheering from the rooftops for this, a new domain to essentially segment off the launching of the academic progress evaluation just for individual students. So now you would have the opportunity to say allow advisors to only launch the APR for specific students rather than having access to launch at like the whole program study level or the academic unit level combination. So that one is kind of been a long time coming. I think everybody's pretty happy with that. And then the last one on the screen, educational institution grading scheme SOAP APIs. Essentially now we are able to load educational institution specific grades for your custom grading schemes for those institutions. This helps us with implementation because if institutions choose to go that route, we can do that with iLoad or web services much quicker than having to do it manually. But I think the biggest tie-in is potentially to some of the things coming down the line with AI and machine learning. So if we can get one click, please. See if this works. All right, there we go. So the student administration AI agent is something that we're keeping an eye on with Workday. And we know that in progress for the future, Workday is working on a transcript processor and transfer credit assist portion of the student administration agent. So where this web service may come into play with a transcript processor is if you think about a transcript processor reading a PDF and reading the grades off of how that transcript comes from that educational institution, it's going to process that directly into your UI. So you might have benefit from setting up specific grading schemes for those institutions if it's going to drop that specific grade in so that when you process transfer credit rules after the fact, those process correctly and the right internal grade is assigned based off of the external grade on the transcript. All right, next one, please. These are two pretty quick ones, just not to miss. Basically, report fields retiring, your transfer credit registration report fields. So begin reviewing reports that may be utilizing these so that you've got the right reports up and running once they're retired. Same thing with the cohort security and reporting. They have new versions of fields that are replacing prior versions. There are also some information around enhancing the data privacy. So you want to make sure you check your user access on the domains appropriately. And of one other plug that is not on the slide, but just to have another minute or so, your course section date changes. There's a new web service that is essentially allowing those to process like one at a time rather than in bulk. So for institutions that are changing dates on sections through integrations, this new web service should be explored and utilized because it should help make any of those integrations run much faster relative to making those updates on the sections.
Yeah, and so much
All
going
right.
on there, Alejo. I know
Thank
every
you.
section is just action-packed, so I know that the participants are loving this. Okay, Heather, let's talk financial aid.
Yes, with this release, there are some big must-change items for financial aid. Workday's updating the financial aid packaging process to accommodate federal regulations regarding the use of the Student Aid Index, or SAI. Need will now be assessed simultaneously for all eligible academic periods that a financial aid award spans. Now, the formula will still be the cost of attendance minus SAI minus other financial assistance. However, how these fields are aggregated is changing. Need will now be calculated by summing the costs and summing all of the financial assistance from all eligible academic periods within a single packaging period. The full 9-month SAI will then be subtracted from the combined costs of the eligible periods. Now, if a student is ineligible for aid during a specific period, that period's data will automatically be excluded from the calculation. Selection logic for packaging jobs is also being updated. Merit and need packaging jobs will automatically include all academic periods within the same packaging period. Now, regardless of how packaging is run, Workday will always assess SAI across the correct packaging periods. So when you are running mass actions on, let's say, the run student financial aid processes by period reports, if you select one academic period to package, but that academic period is part of a greater packaging period. So for example, you select the fall academic period, but it is within a fall spring packaging period. The packaging job will automatically trigger packaging for both academic periods to ensure that SAI is being utilized correctly. Jobs during nightly orchestration will follow that same logic as well. Now, also because of the new packaging logic, how unmet need is calculated in amount interim calculations will now be based on the packaging period instead of the academic period. Fortunately, the way in which this logic is being delivered, updates to any existing amount interim calculations that you're currently using should not be needed. Although I would suggest and encourage testing to be sure that there aren't any adverse effects. There will also be changes to the data viewable on the Total Financial Aid Assistance Report, or TFA, on the student profile. Last thing I want to mention about regulatory updates is that students in self-service and administrators on TFA will now only be able to accept equal amounts of subsidized and unsubsidized loans across academic periods. Now, we all have those odd amounts, right? But those loan differences of $1, $2, $3 are accounted for within this update. So you will be allowed still to have those slight discrepancies among academic periods. All right, next up, I have one could change item. Now, Nate mentioned the redesigned external student site, which combines the two financial aid tasks available for applicants. So the two tasks that are available for applicants are award information and action items. Those two items are going to be in one page. So currently, a student has to go to two separate pages to view their financial aid information. In the redesign site, the action items information is located at the top of the page with award information directly below. And then lastly, for financial aid, I wanted to mention a few release items that I think are worth reviewing. There is a new report field called dropped, failed, or withdrawn from all Title IV eligible enrollments, which is now going to be on the financial aid period record. Now, why does that matter? Because it's on the financial aid period record, this new field will be available to use in reports prior to the creation of an R2T4 worksheet. So currently, you are not able to utilize this field until a worksheet is actually created. So more proactive with this particular report field. Now, I wanted to briefly talk about the item regarding new student nightly job orchestration BP. This has moved to 2026 R2. But the new nightly job orchestration event BP will enable you to add integration steps into nightly orchestration. An important note about this functionality, though, is that if this BP is utilized, all jobs currently included in nightly orchestration now will need to be added or essentially replicated into the BP before any integration steps are added. So even though it won't be in production until the next release, the functionality is in preview tenants right now. The last item is with applicant data. With applicants, currently any data from custom objects and then both external awards and locked awards may not make it to the student record. And this occurs when an applicant matriculates into a program of study that is different from the program of study they applied to. So with this release, that information, the data on the custom objects, and any awards that are locked or any external awards that have been loaded to that applicant record, if that applicant matriculates into a different program of study, those will all be copied over to the student record. This is going to obviously reduce the need to identify and correct students with missing data and/or awards. And that concludes the financial aid release topics.
Thank you, Heather. A lot of good things in there as well. All right, our final but in no way least area, student financials. Let's go to you, Michelle.
Hello. So I put a couple of things for must change. With the Workday streamlining the sponsor contract invoicing, we have decoupled from the customer invoice. So we have a couple of new data sources, the student sponsor invoice documents or consolidated student sponsor invoice. What this means for you is you're going to have to revisit your BERTs that are for your student sponsor invoice and your consolidated, because now it's going to be living in a different space. The good news is that because we are no longer part of customer, this is totally student. It's a lot easier to get to a lot of the fields that we need in order to like incorporate those in our invoices. So that is good news. And with that, you also have a student sponsor invoice layout rule that you will be able to create for the student sponsor invoice and also for the consolidated sponsor invoice. Next slide, please. Also with this, we have our own invoice ID generators for sponsor invoice, when you have sponsor invoice rebill, also when you are doing syncing invoices for sponsor invoice credit adjustment, and you also have one for your consolidated student sponsor invoice. And you can do these, create these ID generators on the tenant setup student. And what's good about this is that when you are doing the invoices, you'll see kind of like the connected or related invoices. Like if you've already invoice them like with a new invoice and then there's an adjustment, you'll see all these related ones and they'll have a different ID for them. So it just kind of helps visually to kind of see like what's going on with a particular student's invoice. Now there's also going to be like a changeover because existing invoices are attached to like a customer. So that's a different journal source. Now, Workday is not going to be converting over invoices that are in draft, but for existing invoices that you want to convert over to the student sponsor invoice journal, there is a task, mask update journal source in which you can do this. Now, for the invoices that you have in draft, you can decide if you want to re-invoice them with the student invoice. A lot of times the invoices are in draft because you forgot to put the invoice type, which is another little nice bonus now. It's now a required field. Thank you. I was so excited when that happened, is that now because they have that as a required field, chances are you're not going to end up with all these invoices that are draft status. Next slide, please. All right, so these are my don't miss. Real-time student accounts. This has been a long time ask. And what this means is that when you go into your maintain institutional student financial options, you can check real-time accounts as kind of the selection, like if you want to do this. Now, what this means is that it's only going to assess if you have an active charge assessment schedule open for that academic period. So as students register and you have that charge assessment schedule that's active, then the student's account will update automatically. So I know this has been kind of a long time ask for a lot of schools, so this is good news. So I encourage you to kind of get out there and start testing that. Another big thing is the streamlining of student sponsor invoicing. They've cut out a lot of those kind of interim steps that really don't add to the experience, and kind of streamline that. You can also have the ability to consolidate multiple invoices across several sponsor contracts. And it's a lot easier to reconcile accurately. One of the features you'll see on the sponsor contract itself, on the sponsor contract lines, you'll see they'll have a column for the invoice, which is a hyperlink. So you can drill right into the invoice from the sponsor contract on the student line. So there's a lot of nice features that they've kind of added with this to make things more visible. So you're not kind of guessing or having to write a lot of reports to figure out kind of like your reconciliation of your invoices. There's also the student sponsor invoice event business process, which is new, which means that if you wanted to add additional approvals or routing or notifications, you can use that business process in your student invoicing procedures. Another nice little feature is that on the invoices, you can add notes and attachments to the invoices so that when you go to print them, they can, you can send these things to your sponsors. And that kind of wraps it up for student finance.
Thank you, Michelle. I feel like we just stepped into holiday season and we didn't even have to buy any gifts. This has been so exciting for me as a previous client and as a current user for Workday. This is exciting, and I'm so grateful for those who've joined us to share their expertise and their information. I know it was a lot to capture, but again, we will be sending the recording to you if you signed up for the webinar. We will also post it on our YouTube page and our website. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me, analia.morrow@avaap.com. Or if you didn't grab how to spell my name, please feel free to respond to the email address where you got this invitation for the webinar, and we will make sure to touch base with you. We are happy to talk to you about any of our solutions, but first and foremost, if there's anything we can do to support you with answering questions, help you evaluate any of these release items, implement them, just talk through best practices of how you might think about it. We're here for you, happy to support you. Thank you so much for your time. Have a wonderful day.